The Sea King's Gift. There was once a fisherman who was called Salmon, and his Christian name was Matt. He lived by the shore of the big sea. Where else could he live? He had a wife named Maie. Could not find a better name for her. In winter they dwelt in a little cottage by the shore, but in spring they flitted out to Red Rock in the sea and stayed there the whole summer till it was autumn. The cottage on the rock was even smaller than the other. It had a wooden bolt instead of an iron lock to the door, a stone hearth with flagstaff, and a weathercock on the roof. The rock was called Ahtola, and was not larger than a marketplace of a town. Between the crevices there grew a little rowan tree and 4 alder bushes. Heaven only knows how they came to be there, but perhaps they were brought by winter storms. Besides that, there flourished some tufts of velvety green and sometimes scattered weeds, and 2 plants of the yellow herb called tansy, and 4 of a red flower, and a pretty white one. But the treasures of the rock consisted of 3 roots of garlic, which Maie put in a cleft. The rock wall sheltered them on the north side, and the sun shone on them in the south. This does not seem like much, but it sufficed for Maie for an herb plot. All good things go in threes. So Matt and his wife fished for salmon in spring, for herring in summer, and for cod in winter. When on Saturdays the weather was fine and the wind favorable, they sailed to the nearest town and sold their fish, and went to church on Sunday. But it often happened that for weeks at a time they were quite alone on the rock Ahtola, and had nothing to look at except the little brown dog, which bore the name of Prince. Their great grass tufts, the bushes and blooms, the sea bays and fish, a stormy sky, and the blue, white-crested waves. For the rock lay far away from land, and there were no green inlets or human habitations for miles around. Only here and there appeared a rock of the same red stone as Ahtola, sprinkled day and night with ocean spray. Matt and Maie were industrious, hard-working folk, happy and contented in their poor huts, and they thought themselves rich when they were able to salt many casks of fish for they required for winter, and yet have some left with which they could buy tobacco for the old man, and a pound or 2 of coffee for his wife, with plenty of burned corn and chicory in it to give it flavor. Besides that, they had bread, butter, fish, a beer cask, and a buttermilk jar. What more did they require? All would have gone well had not Maie been possessed with a secret longing for which never let her rest. And this was, how could she manage to become the owner of a cow? "What would you do with a cow?" said Matt. "She could not swim that far, and our boat is not large enough to bring her over here. And even if we had her, we have nothing to feed her on." "We have 4 alder bushes and green tufts of grass," rejoined Maie. "Yes, of course," replied Matt. "We also have 3 plants of garlic. Garlic would be fine for feeding her." "Every cow likes salt herring," rejoined his wife. "Even Prince is fond of fish." "That may be," said her husband. "Methinks she soon would be a dear cow if we had to feed her on salt herring. All very well for Prince, who fights with the gulls for every last morsel. Put a cow out of your head, mother. We're very well off as we are." Maie sighed. She knew well that her husband was right, but she could not give up on the idea of a cow. The buttermilk no longer tasted good as usual in the coffee. She thought sweet cream and fresh butter, and how there would be nothing in the world to compare with them. One day, as Matt and his wife were cleaning herring on the shore, they heard Prince barking, and soon there appeared a gaily painted boat with 3 young men on it, steering towards the rock. They were students on a boating excursion, and wanted to get something to eat. "Bring us a junket, good mother," they cried to Maie. "If only I had such a thing," said Maie. "Then a can of fresh milk, then?" said the students. "But it must be not skimmed." "Yes, if only I had it," sighed the old woman, still more deeply. "What? You haven't got a cow?" Maie was silent. This question so struck her to the heart that she could not reply. "We have no cow," answered Matt, "but we have a good smoked herring, and can cook them in a couple of hours." "All right, then, that will do," said the students, as they flung themselves down a rock, while 50 silvery white herring were turned on a spit and fire. "What's the name of this little stone in the middle of the ocean?" asked one of them. "Ahtola," answered the old man. "Well, you would want for nothing if you were to live in the Sea King's dominion." Matt could not understand. He had never read the Kabbalah and knew nothing of the sea gods of old, but the students proceeded to explain to him. "Ahti," they said, "is a mighty king who lives in his dominion of Ahtola, and has a rock in the bottom of the sea, and possesses, besides, a treasure of good things. He rules over all fish and animals of the deep, and has the finest cows and swiftest horses that ever chewed grass at the bottom of the ocean. He who stands well with Ahti is soon a rich man, but one must beware in dealing with him, for he is very changeful and touchy. Even little stones thrown into the water might offend him, and then he takes back his gift, and stirs up the sea into a storm and drags sailors down into the depths. Ahti owns some of the finest maidens who would bear a train of his queen Wilmos, and at the sound of music they comb their long flowing locks, which glisten in the water." "Oh," cried Matt, "have you worships really seen that all?" "We have as good as seen it," said the student. "It is all printed in a book, and everything printed is true." "I'm not so sure of that," said Matt, as he shook his head. But the herring were now ready, and the students ate enough for 6, and gave Prince some cold meat, which they had happened to have on the boat. Prince sat on his hind legs with delight, and mewed like a pussy-cat. When all was finished, the students handed Matt a shining silver coin, and allowed him to fill his pipe with a special kind of tobacco. Then they thanked him for his kind hospitality and went on their journey, much regretted by Prince, who sat in the woeful expression, and whined on shore as long as he could see a flip of the boat's white sail in the distance. Maie never uttered a word, but thought the more. She had good ears, and had laid to heart the story of Ahti. "How delightful," she thought to herself, "to possess a fairy cow! How delicious every morning and evening to draw milk from it, and yet to have no trouble about the feeding, and to keep a shelf near the window for dishes and milk and junkets. This will never be my luck." "What are you thinking about?" asked Matt. "Nothing," said his wife. All the time she was pondering over the magic rhymes she had heard from her childhood from an old lame man, which were supposed to bring good luck to fishing. "What if I were to try?" she thought. Now, this was Saturday, and on Saturday evenings Matt never set the herring net, for he did not fish on Sunday. Towards evening, however, his wife said, "Let us set the herring net just this once." "No," said her husband, "it is Saturday night." "Last night was so stormy, and we caught so little," urged his wife. "Tonight the sea is like a mirror, and with the wind in the direction the herring are drawn towards land." "But the streaks in the northwestern sky, and the prince was eating grass this evening," said the old man. "Surely he's not eating my garlic!" exclaimed the old woman. "No, but there will be with rough weather by tomorrow at sunset," rejoined Matt. "Listen to me," said his wife. "We will set only one net close to the shore, and then we will be able to pick up our half-filled cask, which will spoil if it stands open so long." The old man allowed himself to be talked over, and so they rowed out to the net. When they reached the deepest part of the water, she began to hum the words of the magic rhyme, altering the words to suit the longings of her heart. "O Ahti, with the long, long beard, who dwellest in the deep blue sea, finest treasures have I heard, and glittering fish belong to thee. The richest pearls beyond compare are stored up in thy realm below. The ocean's cows are sleek and fair, feed on the grass in thy meadow. King of waters far and near, I ask not of thy garden store. I wish not jewels or pearls to wear, nor silver either ask I for. But one is odd and even is two. Give me a cow, sea king so bold, and in return I give to you a slice of the moon and the sun's gold." "What are you humming?" asked the old man. "Oh, only the words of an old rhyme that keeps running in my head," answered the old woman, and she raised her voice and went on. "O Ahti with the long, long beard, who dwellest in the deep blue sea. 1,000 cows are in thy herd. I pray thee give one unto me. That's a stupid song, said Matt. What else should one beg for the Sea King but fish? But such songs are not for Sunday. His wife pretended not to hear him, and sang the same tune all the time they were on the water. Matt heard nothing more as he sat and rowed the heavy boat, while thinking of his cracked pipe and his fine tobacco. Then they turned to the island, and soon after went to bed. Neither Matt nor Maie could sleep a wink. The one thought of how he had profaned Sunday, and the other about his cow. About midnight, the fisherman sat up and said to his wife, "Dost thou hear anything?" "No," said she. "I think the twirling of the weather clock on the roof bodes ill," he said. "We will soon have a storm." "Oh, it is nothing but your fancy," said his wife. Matt lay down, and soon rose again. "The weathercock is squeaking now," he said. "Just fancy, go to sleep," said his wife, and the old man tried to. For the third time he jumped out of bed. "Oh, how the weathercock is roaring at the pitch of its voice, and if it had a fire inside it! We're going to have a tempest. We must bring in the nets." Both rose. The summer night was dark as if it had been October, and the weathercock creaked, and the storm was raging in every direction. As they went out, the sea lay around them as white as snow, and the spray was dashing over the fisher huts. In all his life, Matt had never remembered such a sight. To launch the boat and put to sea and rescue the net was not the thing to be thought of. The fisherman and his wife stood aghast at the doorstep, holding on fast on the doorpost while the foam splashed over their faces. "Did I not tell thee that there was no luck in Sunday fishing?" said Matt sulkily, and his wife was so frightened that she never even once thought about his cows. As there was nothing to be done, they went in. Their eyes were heavy from lack of slumber, and they slept as soundly as if there had been no such thing as an angry sea roaring furiously around their lonely dwelling. When they awoke, the sun was high in the heavens. The tempest had ceased, and only the swell of the sea rose in silvery heavings against the red rock. "What can that be?" said the old woman as she peeped out from the door. "It looks like a big seal." "As sure as I live, it's a cow!" exclaimed Maie. And certainly it was a cow, a fine red cow, flat and fat and flourishing, and looking as if it had been fed all its days on spinach, wandering peacefully up and down the shore, and never so much as even looked at the poor little tufts of grass, as if it despised such fare. Matt could not believe his eyes, but a cow she seen, and it was a cow she found to be. And when the old woman began to milk her, every pitcher and pan, even to the boiler, was soon filled with the most delicious milk. The old man troubled his head in vain as to how she came there, and sallied forth to seek his lost net. He had not prepared far when he cast that out on shore, and so full of fish that not a mesh was visible. "There's no time fine to process a cow," said Milk, as he cleaned his fish. "Well, what are we going to feed her?" "We shall find some means," said his wife. And the cow found the means herself. She went out and cropped a seaweed which grew in abundance near the shore, and always kept in good condition. Everyone, Prince alone expected, thought that this was a clever beast, but Prince barked at her, and for now he had got no rival. From that day the Red Rock overflowed with milk and junkets. Every net was filled with fish. Matt and Maie grew fat on fine living and became richer. She churned quantities of butter, and he hired 2 men to help him with his fishing. The sea lay before them like a big fish tank, out of which he hauled many as he required, and the cow continued to fend for itself. In autumn, when Matt and Maie went to shore, the cow went to sea, and in spring, when they returned, the cow stood waiting for them. "We shall require a better house," as Maie said the following summer. "One is too old and small for ourselves and then—" "Yes," said Matt. So he built a large cottage with a real lock at the door, and a storehouse for the fish as well. And he and his men caught such quantities of fish that they sent tons of salmon, herring, and cod to Russia and Sweden. I'm quite overworked with so many folks, said Maie. A girl to help me would not come amiss. Good one then, said her husband, and so they hired a girl. Then Maie said, we have too little milk for all these folk. Now that I have a servant, it's the same amount of trouble she could look after 3 cows. All right then, said her husband, somewhat provoked. You can sing a song to the fairies. This annoyed Maie, but nevertheless she rode out to the sea Sunday night and sang it before. Ahti with the long, long beard, who dwells in the deep blue sea, 1,000 cows are in thy herd, I pray thee give 3 unto me. The following morning, instead of 1, 3 cows stood on the island. They ate all the seaweed and fended for themselves like the first one. Art thou satisfied now? Said Matt to his wife. I should be quite satisfied, said his wife, if only I had 2 servants to help, and if I had some finer clothes. Don't you know that I am addressed as Madam? Well, well, said her husband. So Maie got several servants and clothes fit for the lady. Everything would be perfect now if only we had a little better dwelling for summer. We might build a 2-story house and fetch some soil to make a garden. Then you might make a little arbor up there and let's have a little sea view. We might have a fiddler to fiddle to us in the evening and a little streamer to take us to church in the morning in stormy weather. Anything more? Asked Matt, as he did everything that his wife wished. The rock Ahtola became so grand and Maie so great that all the sea urchins and herring were lost in wonderment. Even Prince was fed on beefsteaks and cream scones till he was lasted round as a butter jar. Are you satisfied now? Said Matt. I should be quite satisfied, said Maie. Only I had 30 cows. At least that number is required for such a household. Go to the fairies, said Matt. His wife set out in a new steamer and sang to the Sea King. Next morning 30 cows stood on the shore, all finding food for themselves. Knowest thou, good man, that we are too far cramped on this wretched rock, and where am I to find room for so many cows? There's nothing to be done but pump out to the sea. Rubbish, said his wife. Who can pump out the sea? Try with a new steamer. There's a pump in it. Maie knew well that her husband was only making fun of her, but still her mind was set upon the same subject. I could never pump the sea out, she thought. But perhaps I've filled up, if I were to make a big dam, might heap on sand and stones and make her island bigger again. Maie loaded her boat with stones and went out to sea. The fiddler was with her and fiddled so finely that Ahti and Wellamos and all the sea's daughters rose to the surface of the water to listen to the music. What is that shining so brightly in the waves? Asked Maie. That's the sea foam glinting with the sunshine, answered the fiddler. Throw out the stones, said Maie. The people in the boat began to throw out stones, splish, splash, right and left into the foam. One stone hits the nose of Wellmost chief waiting. Another scratched the sea queen herself right on the cheek. A third plumped close to Ahti's head and tore off half the sea king's beard. Then there was a commotion in the sea, and the waves bubbled and bubbled like boiling water in a pot. Whence comes this gust of wind? Said Maie. As she spoke, the sea opened and swallowed the steamer. Maie sank to the bottom like a stone. By stretching out her arms and legs, she floated to the surface, where she found the fiddler's fiddle and used it to float. At the same moment she saw close beside her the terrible head of Ahti, and he had only half a beard. Why did you throw stones at me? Roared the Sea King. Oh, your majesty, it was a mistake. Put some bear's grease on your beard, and that will soon make it grow again. Did I not give you all you asked for? Nay, even more. Truly, truly, your majesty. Many thanks for the cows. Well, where is the gold from the sun and silver from the moon that you promised me? Your majesty, they have been scattered day and night upon the sea, except when the sun was overcast, shyly answered Maie. I'll let you, roared the Sea King, and with that he gave the fiddle such a puff that it sent the old woman up like a skyrocket on her island. There Princely, as famished as ever, gnawing the carcass of a crow. There sat Mat with his ragged gray jacket, quite alone on the steps of the old huts, mending a net. "Heavens, mother," he said, "where are you coming up from such a whirlwind place? And what makes you so dripping condition?" Maie looked around in amaze. "Where is our two-story house?" "What house?" asked her husband. "Our big house, and the flower garden, and the men, and the maids, and 30 beautiful cows, and the steamer, and everything else." "You're talking nonsense, mother. The students quite turned your head, for you sang silly songs last evening while you were rowing, and then you did not sleep till early morning. We had stormy weather during the night, and when it was past I did not wish to waken you, so I rowed out alone to rescue the net." "But I've seen Ahti," rejoined Marie. "You have been lying in bed dreaming foolish fancies, mother, and then in your sleep you walked into the water." "But there's the fiddle," said Maie. "Fine fiddle? It's only an old stick. No, no, old woman, another time we'll be more careful. Good luck never attends fishing on Sunday."